Have you ever felt like no matter how much you accomplish, you're still falling behind? Like there's always another deadline, another email, another expectation, and slowing down feels impossible. If that sounds familiar, this episode is for you. Today's conversation is part of my brand new Client Spotlight series, where I'll be sharing real stories of transformation from my incredible one on one coaching and consulting clients. These episodes are about more than just success. Really, it's about walking you through how someone else has redefined success in a way that feels sustainable, values aligned, and true to what matters most to them. My guest today is Dr. Paloma Rojas Saunero, a Latina physician, epidemiologist, and postdoctoral scholar at the UCLA Fielding School of Public Health. Her research focuses on advancing health equity in aging by studying how social and cardiometabolic factors shape dementia and other aging outcomes, especially among historically minoritized populations. She is also deeply connected to her home country of Bolivia and passionate about mentoring the next generation of scholars. In this episode, Paloma shares what it looked like to move from burnout and a constant sense of false urgency to designing a workflow and a life that honors her values, her family, and her energy. You'll hear how she recognized and managed the pressure to always be on. She learned to align task, project, and energy management with her own creative process. And ultimately, she has found joy and the confidence in defining what enough looks like for her. Her story is incredibly powerful because it reminds all of us, myself included, that thriving in academia or in any career isn't about pushing ourselves to do more or to reach the next achievement. It's really about doing what matters most and doing it in a way that feels doable to you. So let's get into it. Here is my conversation with Dr. Paloma Rojas Saunero. Welcome to the award-winning Grad School Femtoring podcast, the place for first-gen BIPOCs to listen in on inclusive grad school stories and learn about personal development and productivity tips. This is Dr. Yvette Martinez-Vu, a certified coach, consultant, and author, and I will be serving as your Femtor, providing you with insider knowledge to help you reach your personal and professional goals. I'm so happy to have you here. Welcome to the podcast, Paloma.
Thank you so much, Dr. Yvette. It's so nice to be able to share a space with you. I'm such a fan of your podcast, and I'm so happy to share my experience with you.
Thank you for saying yes. I was a little nervous asking you, but I thought, you know what? Why not?
Yeah, I mean, I keep preaching everyone I know about all the things I've learned with you, so I thought it would also be a great place to share more widely.
Thank you. So let's start off with if there's anything else you wanted to share about your background, about your current role, or anything else that I might have missed from your introduction.
I guess I can share more a bit about, I've been in the US for 3 years. So I did my PhD in the Netherlands, and we moved to the US to do my postdoc 3 years ago. So that will be that has to do a lot with what we'll be chatting later.
Yeah, so that's a huge transition, is even moving to another country, starting, not just getting to know a new institution, getting to know a new community, a new set of systems, policies, etc. I'm curious though for you, because not everybody will seek out a coach and not everybody will even seek out external support. So what was it that made you want to seek out coaching at this stage of your journey? You said you're kind of 3 years in the US and you're now in a postdoc. What came up for you around that time?
Yeah, well, it was pretty much like moving here to the US, to LA. I moved myself and my family, my partner, and my 4-month-old at the time. Um, so I think like launching a postdoc, it was my dream. It is still my dream job, like after a PhD. But I felt that, it was just a lot. I didn't realize how much of like juggling between like trying to do your best at work, but also trying to like um put your feet on the ground in this country with all the immigration concerns and everything, and also parenting for the first time. I did not realize how much of a big load that it was, all those changes happening at the same time. And so, professionally, I mean, we moved for my work, and then I felt that in my work, I was feeling behind all the time. I just didn't have all the time as I had to during my PhD to just focus on the work, but juggling all these made me feel behind in everything.
I hear you. I heard you talking about navigating a lot of big life transitions, from dealing with the bureaucracy of moving to a new country to dealing with new parenthood. And that's a huge life change for any of us that are parents, or even for individuals who are caregivers. And then you mentioned this feeling that a lot of us will relate to about like feeling behind, is that feeling like you can never catch up. There's always another thing and another thing on your plate. And I'm curious if you are comfortable sharing some of the specific challenges that you were facing, especially if you can expand more on like what were the things that made you feel like you were behind, or what were the challenges that you were dealing with that may have been impacting not just your workload, but your confidence, your well-being, your work-life balance.
Yeah. So during a postdoc, because I know in different fields there are people who transition already directly from PhD to an assistant professor, like a professor or a tenure track job. And for other fields, there's no postdocs, or there are postdocs, but pretty much postdoc is that transition where you get to implement everything you've learned during your PhD, learn new things, and develop the skills you need to become an independent researcher. So during my postdoc, I've been learning a lot of new things, methods, especially to study health disparities. But it also meant learning how to write grants, doing more mentoring as well to other students. It also meant giving out more talks and also preparing all my materials for the job market. So all these things were new to me. And I I'm I always meet my deadlines, but the cost of meeting those deadlines was something I didn't expect it to be that hard. I would submit things on time and then just crash, feel burnt out. And also, I felt very guilty about not juggling well time to spend with my family and my kid. And even though I try not to work on weekends, just ruminating about the work that I felt undone, like left, was something that it's a job that I love. And somehow by the end of the day, I don't want to say unhappy, but, not feeling excited, just feeling again behind. So that's the reason why I thought, okay, there must be a way to improve my organization and some skills. And I actually talked with my mentor about all these stuff. And she I can't remember if she suggested the coaching, but we definitely talked about, but just like coaching on writing, or I guess there was no time management stuff. But I did talk about time management with my mentor. But I think I just needed like someone who could really guide me.
I don't think that I asked you, or I don't know if I ever asked you directly how you found me or what drew you to my work. And so I think this is the first time I'm hearing that you have this conversation about coaching with your own mentor. And in any case, are you comfortable sharing like how you found me, my work, and what resonated about me that drew you to me? Not everybody, like I said, a lot of people will follow, will click like, etc., but not everybody will take that extra step of let me seek out resources. Let me see what, what I can do with the resources that I have to hire support.
Yeah, well, I think, you know, there are not many Latinas in academia as there should be. So and I follow a lot of Latinas in academia on Instagram. And that's how I learned about Dr. Gina Ann Garcia on her podcast, HSI, Que Pasa HSI.
Yeah.
And she shared something she had done with you, and so I started following you as well and seeing your amazing content. And then all around the same time, I was thinking about how to improve, not really improve productivity, but how, organize my work and life to have a better balance. So that all aligned perfectly.
You know what? Shout out to Doctora Gina N. Garcia. Shout out to her. It's so funny that you mentioned her because she recently mailed me a t-shirt that says "Que pasa HSI" with a beautiful sunflower. And it was just really, really thoughtful of her. And she's going to have me present as a panelist for one of her courses pretty soon. So it's nice to be able to do this kind of work collaboratively, like where folks can refer each other. And the first time I met her was when I interviewed her to be on my podcast. And so it's just a lot of, I love that kind of full circle moment of starting with me reaching out to her, then her reaching out to me. And now we have this really nice friendship from afar. And it's really cool that it's a lot of times it's really about our connections with people. And that's how you found me through her. So anyway, I appreciate hearing that. That wasn't part of what I had in
Yeah.
my notes to talk about
A
today, but it
surprise.
just came up and I thought, oh, let
Yeah.
me probably ask. What are the other things too? You mentioned there were so many things that came up, so many costs that came up in your postdoc, from the cost of meeting deadlines, the cost of feeling that guilt, the cost of never really feeling like you could let things go, that ruminating. It comes up a lot with, it's happened to me before with a lot of people that I work with too, or even I'm sure a lot of people will relate to this feeling of working really hard, then crashing, and then doing it over and over again to the point of burnout. And I know I can specifically mention one example, and I'll mention it really quickly, that the trip, the plane example, but I'm wondering if there's other examples of a turning point for you in our coaching experience, because you've shared written and verbal feedback that in our work together, you felt seen, you felt validated, and you felt more in control of your work and your life. But it always helps to ground these ways of
Yeah.
feeling with actual tangible examples. So I'm curious, and I mentioned we don't have to talk about that trip, but that's what comes to mind for me. But what comes to mind for you in terms of a turning point?
Oh, yeah. Oh, well, I mean, everything I shared so far are all the reasons why I reached out. But now, like after having all the coaching sessions with you, it definitely turned out to be something deeper than, just like learning skills about task management or an organization. It was something very, and I think it all starts with first acknowledging that the work I do is good work. Like just like that I'm doing good enough. That I'm doing thing like the research that I'm doing is aligned with how I see we should be doing research, not rushing because of people like academia expects people to like publish a lot of papers all very quickly, and just like acknowledging and that the reason why I take long in doing my papers or how much time it takes me to prepare a talk is because I try to be very intentional about everything I'm doing in my work, and that I should be proud of that because I'm trying to do the best science that I can. I think that was like very important to like I can't explain how important to me was that, like to hear it from someone else, even though I think my mentor always like will acknowledge that, but from someone like you who didn't really know me, and then just feeling proud about that also made me recognize that other people are also cheering for me. Maybe I wasn't seeing because I'm like, oh yeah, I made all these accomplishments, but I should be doing more. But then when I think it all clicked when we talked about aligning your values and doing intentional work. And that and then when we started looking at how like how do I prepare to do talks? And then use like skills such as, like thinking about task management, project management, and energy management, and aligning that to my creative process was wow. Because it was aligning those two things or being aware of all these things that helped me organize myself better, allowing myself to feel and to be intentional about my work, and then get to meet deadlines, but without feeling crashed. And I think I know well, what you're talking about the trip. That like initially, because we tried to take a few days off, like to do some family trips around California, and then I was not I I felt that I needed to take my laptop and work during family trips. And that had been the way I was doing things. And I was not proud of because that's time that I intended to spend with family, not working. So with all these coaching sessions, I finally learned of okay, what can I achieve before the trip comes? Like what is feasible, what is like my priorities, and then I was able to meet those like I guess creating more feasible tasks or like organizing my tasks in a way that I feel I'm achieving things. And then I don't remember which holiday it was that we took a trip and I didn't open my computer at all during that trip.
Yes.
Yes. And now I've actually been doing that like on holidays and like weekends. I think I've learned better how to manage with meeting my own it would be like my own deadlines, right? And like my hard deadline is before I trip because in during the trip time I just want to focus in my family. Yeah.
Right, right. You know what? That was exactly what I was thinking about. I was thinking about that one plus another time where I think it was you were going to a conference and someone else was doing a lot of work and you were okay with just taking the trip and the plane ride, not getting any work done because you had done enough. And that's what came up for me in those
Yes.
examples is the question of what is enough? Because that's a big one that comes up for a lot of people is like, how do I determine what enough work is so that I give myself permission to slow down, to rest, to take a break, to take a weekend off, and so forth. Yeah. And the other thing, too, when you said aligning these ideas around task management, project management, and energy management with my creative process, I love that you called it a creative process because as an academic, not everybody will call it a creative process, but it really is. And it reminds me, I'm getting excited. It reminds me of like in creative writing, there's such a thing called a craft, and it's the way that you write. And that makes it you. It's like
Yeah.
your process. That's your craft. And I really do think that we can all develop a craft around how we do our work. And so the work that I do isn't, let me teach you all the ways that I do it so that you can copy me and then you're fine. No, it's, let's take a look at how you do things and figure out a way to turn it into a craft or to turn it into your process, like what makes it work for you and not forcing yourself to fit into a mold of how other people do things that's burning you out, that's making you sick, that's leaving no time for your family and life. So anyway, all of that came up with everything that you shared.
Yeah, and just recognizing that it is a creative process. It's actually the core of how and why I enjoy my work, right? Are those moments where I have enough space to read and to think and to read again and to think and find my own way of express, or like, I mostly work in methods, but how I'm going to explain these methods, what examples can I use, how can I translate something that is very complicated into something that people can understand, or like the students can understand, or in a research project, how can I say things, or like what method. Everything is a creative process, and that gives me a lot of joy, and I was not measuring or like feeling it if I'm always feeling that I'm behind.
Yeah. And the other thing too that came up that was a big shift was first learning to recognize and acknowledge this idea around false urgency and then managing it so that it aligns with your productivity, it aligns with your values. So I think I probably mentioned it in passing without even thinking twice. I wasn't thinking this would be an aha moment. I was just naming what I noticed and in what you were sharing in our sessions. And so that's one of the things that came up. Well, it sounds like there's a false sense of urgency instead of a true sense of urgency here. And I'm curious, yeah, like because it's something that you resonated with, what came up for you when I mentioned false urgency? And now that you recognize it, how have things changed for you?
Yeah. Well, I think before if a student would reach out, like if we could talk because they need to chat about their dissertation, I would put myself immediately available. If a colleague wanted to chat about an idea for their project, I would be very like, I would treat all these as, yeah, we can meet now or we can meet tomorrow, and or so I think like also in academia we have these hard deadlines, but I guess I was treating everything as, I was so flexible with my time, and I was always I always made myself available. And it wasn't until you showed me that matrix, I always forget the name of
The Eisenhower matrix,
that
right?
matrix changed my life also, because that helped me see like what's urgent, what has to be done but it's not urgent, what things can I like take longer to respond, or what things I can say no to or I can delegate. It just helped me see more clearly and start like to putting my time into like organizing the things I should prioritize for my own work, and then how can I support the students, but also in all that, seeing, okay, what's truly urgent? Like, do I need to stop writing this paper so to hop on a meeting with someone? Like, how urgent is that? I wasn't recognizing until we discussed. And I'm still very like, I always want to be available for my colleagues and students and everyone, but it's finding that balance so that I can also prioritize my own work as well.
And I noticed it. I actually noticed it during our time and even after our time together because I was like, "Ooh, I love that she's putting this into practice. I love that she's setting her boundaries around her time." Because even when I invited you to the podcast, you were like, "Can we do it a little later so that it'll, aligns with my schedule?" And I was like, "Absolutely. There is no urgency here. We can do it whenever." So, yeah, that's great that you started to recognize it and that it helped you from treating everything as you having to be immediately available for it to recognizing ways to prioritize between what is actually urgent and important. Actually, that's the Eisenhower matrix. For those of you that are not familiar with it, it's four different squares in the matrix, and one of them is what is urgent and important, what is important and not urgent, what is urgent but not important, and what is not urgent and not important. So it helps you to prioritize around the things that you said of what do you actually have to do now, what would be good to do now, what could be delegated, and what do you not have to do at all. I'm curious, you've already nodded to this in some of your examples, but are there other ways that you feel like your work-life balance or work-life integration has improved since our time together? Again, I know that you are now making more time for family and taking time off on weekends. Those are some of the things that have come up so far, but is there anything else that you wanted to share about that?
Yes, of course. So, I mean, I think it has helped me structure the way I'm working so that I feel that I'm accomplishing more things in the same time as before. And that's just because I've been like defining tasks differently, right? Before it's like write a paper, and now it's write the intro, like first draft of the intro section, and logging that. So that way I can see a much better progress. And now I log everything. That helps me see progress. So by the end of the week, I see all that progress and I'm like, oh, wow. Okay. I checked all the things I was intending to accomplish, and I can see the work that I've done. And so that helps me spend my weekends with my family without ruminating the thing I used to do before. I've been doing yoga, and now I'm trying other like sports for myself, something that I had not put as a priority before. I was just like spending all my time in my computer and then like doing house chores, and now but not just time for myself. So that has also been a big shift. And I think, yeah, overall, I feel in much more control. Like I'm not a hamster running in a wheel, but rather I feel in control of my work, of my tasks, of my future steps, of my future ideas, and I'm enjoying my work much more now.
I'm gonna clip that part. You saying I am no longer on a hamster wheel and I am now much more in control of your life. That's amazing. Wow. And I also know you are a mentor. So you are also mentoring the next generation of scholars. One day we are putting it out into the universe. You're going to have your own lab, you're going to have your own students that work with you. And so I'm curious, how do you see yourself carrying forward what you learn as you mentor others?
Wow, yeah, hopefully someday when I'm a mentor, I think all my students should have a coaching session with you. 'Cause there's so much to learn from you. There's so like from all the skills to improve project management, but like more deeper to align your work with your values. And I mean, we need that so much in academia, right? Because there's just like how it works. And then if you want to stay there, you don't necessarily have to assimilate to that kind of academia. And for that, sometimes when you hear it from people you love, you don't really understand until someone else tells you the same. And then you have like that aha moment. So I think that even if I say that, and I think also my mentor probably feels that way, that she probably told me a lot of deep stuff and I just couldn't realize until you or more, right? But so I really think that we all need to do this work to improve the way academia works and the reward system in academia. And especially, I mean, personally, as I don't see that many Latinas in academia or students from minoritized backgrounds. I think that's something that we also haven't talked, but that's the cherry on the top, or just that just carries so much weight in how you perform, in how you act, how why you say yes and why it's hard to say no to things. And that I really want my students to see their value. I want my students to and to own their creative process as well, and not feel pressured to assimilate to traditional ways of academia.
Yeah, so finding ways for them to own their value, you said, own their creative process, and still remain themselves so that they don't have to feel like they have to assimilate. You can still be you in these spaces. I love that. Well, just for fun, the last question, just to make it fun, if you could summarize your coaching experience in just a few words or in a phrase, what would it be?
I mean, life changing, life changing, definitely.
I often tell people that I absolutely love the work that I do, that it really restores me. And it's because of this. It's because I get to work with really incredible humans. And it's such a privilege, it's such an honor to work with individuals like you. You're doing incredible work. The university you're at now, the university you'll be at in the future, they're going to be so freaking lucky to have you. I am just like beyond blessed and privileged that I get to do this work. So I'm just so happy that you came here. I am so happy that we are still in touch. I can't wait to hear more about your future successes, both the personal ones that maybe other people aren't going to be hearing about, like the I kept my laptop shut for the whole weekend, those successes, as well as the big successes, because I know the external ones are also coming. They're on the way. That's why you're on the job market. You're making it work. And I see big things to come for you and for your familia. So I'm just so happy for you, Paloma. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you so much, Dr. Yvette, again for inviting me to chat with you. And I think I feel the same way as what you shared right now. It's amazing that we got to connect, that I'll be grateful forever of everything you've taught me. I see you as part of my mentorship tree or diagram now, a mentor, a friend, and and I'm just glad to be part also of this community of Latinas who are thriving and who are like working to find themselves. I don't know how to say these, that like
Yeah.
because it's like I guess now I see academia not only as the role of being a researcher, but your role is so important for academia too. But I think it's also important outside academia. So just like recognizing that there are all these professional paths, so that in a way that we all integrate, and that will lead to better science, and not just that, but to help our communities. So I think the work you do is amazing. And you're
Thank you
amazing.
so much. Oh, thank
Yeah.
you. You too. And it just goes to show you the power of community, that when we work together, we can just achieve so much more beyond even our wildest dreams. So, yes, cheers to community. Cheers to staying in touch. And thank you again, Paloma. Thank you so much, Doctora, for joining us today.
Thank you so much.
Wow, what a powerful and affirming conversation. Listening back, I'm reminded of how much courage it takes to slow down in systems that reward constant overwork and urgency. Doctora Paloma's reflections on finding a sense of balance between her professional ambitions and personal well being really speaks to the heart of my work around teaching about sustainable productivity. A few takeaways that stand out to me right now are that sustainable success requires discernment. It's really about learning to name what's truly urgent and important to you versus what is maybe not actually urgent that someone else is imposing on you. Another thing that came up is really about aligning your work with your values and reminding yourself that that is not going to make you less productive. Instead, it can make your work more intentional and even more impactful. And the other thing that she reminded me in this conversation is that rest and creativity are not luxuries. They're really essential parts of our academic and professional lives. So if you're listening and if you see yourself reflected in Doctora Paloma's story, I invite you to pause and reflect. Ask yourself, where in my life or work am I operating from a false sense of urgency? What might shift if I gave myself permission to define enough on my terms? I am so grateful to Doctora Paloma for sharing her experience and for reminding us that sustainable success is possible and necessary for all of us, especially first gen, BIPOC, Latina, immigrant, and neurodivergent professionals navigating these systems. If her story resonated with you and you're also ready to redefine success on your own terms, you can check out my one-on-one and group coaching services at my website, gradschoolfemtoring.com/coaching. Thanks again for listening to my very first Client Spotlight episode. And as always, I'll talk to you all next time. Thanks so much for listening. If you liked what you heard, here are 3 ways you can support the show. The first is to make sure you're subscribed and leave a review on Apple Podcasts. The second way is to get your copy of my free resource kit linked in my show notes. This kit includes tools, worksheets, and podcast playlists on all things grad school, productivity, and personal development. The third way to support my show is to follow me on social media. You can find me on Instagram with the handle @Grad School Femtoring and on LinkedIn by searching my name. Thanks again for listening, and until next time.